Hello and welcome to Let's Conversate. I'm your host, Dean Misdale, although some of you probably know me as my drag alter ego, Feminem. Now, I know some of you are probably asking, what the hell is Let's Conversate? Well, Let's Conversate is my brand new podcast where each episode I will have a different special guest sit down with me and you guessed it, we're going to conversate. They might be someone I know from the industry, someone I have worked with, someone I've known for a long time, or just someone that I think is really damn interesting. So let's jump straight in. Episode 1 and our first special guest, the one and only Karen from Finance!
Woo!
Oh my God, how the hell are you?
I am very good, thank you, Feminem.
Welcome to Perth. So my first question to every guest is going to be, how did we meet? Do you remember how we met the first time?
No, I don't remember. Do you remember?
Yes.
So it was here in Perth?
No.
No? In Melbourne?
It was in Melbourne.
Was it when you did your solo show with the GH?
It was that time, but you picked me up from the airport. We'd never met in person before.
Oh.
We'd just been Facebook friends. And I'd put on Facebook, I'm coming to Melbourne, da-da-da-da, and you slid into my DMs, were like, hey, do you want me to pick you up? I was like, oh, well, there we go. We got a sister in need.
Wow.
And here comes Karen from Finance.
I am such a nice person.
I know.
I had no idea.
You know it's a good drag system when they're, especially in Melbourne, the airport is so far away from the
airport's
city.
basically in Sydney.
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
Wow. I'm
so yeah,
to
thanks
hear
for picking me up from the airport. But yeah, it was I was doing Melbourne Fringe at the time.
Yes,
and
I remember.
I did my show at the GH. GH, rest in peace. She's gone.
R.I.P.
Oh my God, I loved that venue.
In dust at the moment, and still nothing's happened.
Yeah,
it's just a grave
My
site.
best friend, who was my roommate in Sydney years ago, lives around the corner, and he's always like, "Oh my God, it's just sitting there. There's a dead block of land."
Yeah, I actually wish that they would build something quickly so that it's not just a dead block of land
Just a
anymore. 'Cause
memory
it's really
of.
depressing to look at.
Well, let's get into, I've got a bunch of things here I want to ask you and talk about. Where does the name Karen from Finance come from? Because it's such a striking name, I guess. Like, you can't miss it.
It's my number one most asked question, and
Of course.
the answer never gets old for me. I actually, all these years later, after having done so much with it, it makes the origin story that much more silly.
Okay, go for it. Hit us.
It was before I had even considered doing drag.
Yeah.
I was going to a house party. I was at the Salvo store with a bunch of friends during the day. And as
everybody starts drag at the Salvo store. I don't in America, it's Halloween.
Yes.
In Australia, it's the secondhand store.
That's right,
Yep.
the thrift store. And so we were checking out, and at the counter was a rack of $15 sale dresses. And I was there with someone called David and Tim, who are actually both Perthenites.
Oh,
and we decided to buy the dresses and wear them to the house party. And at the time, I had a really big, long biker's beard, and I was
Oh my God, I need to see photos.
I'll find photos.
We're going to have to
for
put
you.
those on our Instagram.
And so we wore them to the party, no makeup, just the dress, just because we thought it was funny. And we were quite wasted, quite tanked. And we started coming up with characters for who would have bought the dresses when they were brand new off the rack.
Gotcha.
And I decided that the lady who bought my dress worked in finance. She was single, middle-aged, desperate and lonely. And her name was probably Karen.
It sounds like a story from 9 to 5.
Right?
One of the secretaries in the 80s.
Yes.
Being,
She's
treated badly by her male boss.
She's the fourth woman, but her role got cut for the film. It didn't make it. It's on the cutting room floor. That's also very Karen.
Cool. And I mean, your name became almost a viral thing because of Trixie and Katya. Now, had you met them before they started name dropping you in their videos and stuff?
Oh,
or
yeah.
did they come across you online? Or?
Yeah, no, there was, I think season 7 had just finished airing and they were on a tour to Australia together.
right.
And I was hosting.
Okay, cool.
And sure, it was at the old GH. We're in the upstairs change room. And they walked in the door and I said, hi, I'm Karen from Finance. And Trixie was holding my hand at the time and
She
said,
would have been like, what did you just say?
Sorry, what now? I said, Karen from Finance. And I mean, that was the end of it.
I love
that was the end of it.
That. Oh my God. Yeah, and that's another interesting point. Like, you do a lot of hosting with the Drag Race tours when they come through Australia. I mean, I've hosted a ton of the Perth shows over the years, but you tend to tour with them sometimes.
Yeah.
And get to go all over the country, which,
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, hashtag like goals.
Hashtag goals.
We don't have Drag Race in Australia, so we ride the coattails of the American girls. And yeah, that's so much fun. And I love it because I love when the girls come to Perth. A lot of people have a bit of a like thing about, people go out and support Drag Race girls and not local girls. But I'm like, at least it's exposing people to drag.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's terms, it's a point of celebrityism.
That's it.
And it's a point of accessibility.
I always say that people are there 9 out of 10 times to see a celebrity who just happens to do drag.
Yeah.
They're not always there for the drag element of it.
You don't get angry when people go and see Kim Kardashian West at, the Forest Chase or something.
Yeah.
You don't say, hey, but I went to Forest Chase, you didn't come see me.
Exactly, yeah.
It's
such
a celebrity.
weird
It's a different
thing.
circumstance.
After you came up with the name Karen from Finance at a random party, how long was it until you actually started doing drag kind of seriously?
Yeah, sure. So it was only a few months later.
Yeah.
I had never thought about it seriously, but I did love the idea. I mean, I think everyone that starts drag has the idea that if they ever do it, they are going to be beautiful. Because you look at the queens on this, and there's the beautiful queens, and there's the trashy queens, and you're like,
I love both though, just as equally.
Don't get me wrong, I love both, but I mean, like, some are put together and some are not.
Yeah.
And if I do it, I'm going to be beautiful. And so my friend's 29th birthday party was coming up. He always has the most fabulous parties. And the theme this year was going to be Dolly, Denim, and Diamantes. And I said, well, this is it. This is the one.
Yeah.
And so I, went back to the Salvos, picked up I went and bought my makeup from, one of those bargain $2 stores. And I just spent about 4 hours doing makeup. I bought my costume, but I sewed like bits of it together and chopped it up and, individualized it. And I went out and I looked terrible. I looked terrible, but I felt beautiful. And some friends came over and we all went to the party together, and I knocked on the door and they opened it up and they looked me up and down and they had no idea who I was.
Amazing.
And they said, who are you? I didn't think about it beforehand. I just said, Karen from Finance was the first thing that came to mind. And sure enough, it was later on that night. Oh my God, I was so wasted at this party. I was dancing on the dining room table about 2 o'clock in the morning and I overheard someone say, who is that on the table? And they said, that's Karen from Finance. And the second I heard that, I said, oh, this is
stuck
something.
Now. Yeah, you can't get rid of it. That's so good, though. How long until you kind of started performing, getting regular gigs? Like, where did you start performing?
Well, so from that point on, I was obsessed. You couldn't get me out of drag.
Gotcha.
But I was not performing.
I was the opposite.
I never considered it. As something that I would do. I never thought I would be a performing drag because I wasn't a performer.
Right.
But I loved to put the costume on.
Gotcha.
And so from that point on, I think the next time I got in drag, I actually went to like a queer party. I think it was called Grouse in Melbourne, and I went alone. I just got dressed at home, and I thought people don't, because I didn't feel like. So my name is Richard.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like Richard was going alone to a party. I felt like Karen from Finance was going alone to the party, and that was okay because she's supposed to be lonely.
It's weird because some people like. Their drag character and their real life character really are polar opposites.
Yeah.
And some people really like their drag character to be a character. For me, I don't. I just kind of flip flop between the two. Like I've never focused on having a particular characterization to my drag.
Yeah.
But obviously you do to an extreme or to an extent.
Everyone does drag for different reasons, don't they? I was kind of just talking with a friend beforehand about this. Drag can be whatever you want it to be. It can be about exploring your femininity. Sure. It can be about creating a character. It can be about like somewhere on the spectrum of those two things.
Well, you just said a minute ago you felt amazing doing drag. And that's the thing, drag can sometimes be more than just a look. It's more about what you get from the doing it or the performance of it. So it's interesting that you say that because, I find for me, drag was always about music and I loved fashion. But I never got that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm in drag. I'm someone different. I just,
no, it was overpowering. It was the most liberating thing I'd ever experienced.
So cool.
Yeah. And so I was going to parties alone and I just liked putting the look together, and then I guess I turned into like a little bit of a club kid and was out all the time. But a friend, Olympia Bukakis, she used to be called Mummy Complex. She kind of ran the alt drag scene in Melbourne back in like 2009. And so she asked me, we became really close, and she asked me to perform at her party Pandora's Box, and I was gobsmacked. I thought, no, I'm not a performer. I can't perform. I don't have any training.
Thrown in
and she
the
was like,
deep
what do you mean
end.
training? I was like, just do a show. Be Karen from finance. And so I did. And the number that I made, the first performance I ever did, I still perform now. It's still like it's my iconic number.
Right.
It's called Karen Gets Fired, where I, lose my job and do the Julia Gillard speech and get it back. It's
yes.
my favorite performance from that. Same as getting in drag for the first time. I've never looked back. I love it.
Yeah, wow. So you're from Melbourne. Are you born and bred in Melbourne?
Born and bred.
Yeah.
I've lived in Melbourne my entire life, apart from about 8 years ago, I lived here in WA.
Get
For
out.
8 months, I lived up north in Shark Bay.
Doing.
It was my sea change.
Yeah.
Everyone else, when I was growing up, they save their money and they go overseas. I didn't have no money.
Yeah, sure.
And so I'd never explored Australia, so I thought, why not start here?
Yeah.
I packed up and sold everything that I owned that didn't fit in the back of my Magna. I jumped in and alone, I drove solo across the Nullarbor.
Oh my God.
Ended up in Shark Bay, and I lived there for 8 months before I realized that I felt like I was retiring at 21 or however old I was, and I need to get out of here.
Yeah,
I
sure.
moved back to Melbourne, and I started doing drag within like the fortnight of getting home.
Wow.
And so that's what did it for me.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a really cool story. How long have you been doing drag for now?
8 years.
8 years, wow. Well, you are working it for all it's worth. And you're in Perth at the moment doing Fringe Festival with your
Yes.
show Out of Office. You've been getting killer reviews.
Thank you.
You've been here since the festival started like a week and a half ago. How long is your run?
I'm doing 3 weeks, 15 shows.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
so crazy.
Big run.
That is a long run. Yeah, Geneva's doing the same thing. She's got 17 shows back to back. Mine are kind of split up. I'm doing 3 or 4 here, 5 here.
See, but you're a smart woman, that's why.
Yeah.
You're a smart woman.
I like to have a day off here and there, but I've only had 1 day off since the festival started.
Oh, wow.
And I'm about to embark on like 15 days straight of
Crazy.
drag and performance.
Hello, shaving rash.
That's it. That's it. It's like, it's the shaving that kills me more than anything. Mm-hmm. Because it's not fun.
For me, it's the going to bed at 5 a.m. and waking up feeling terrible the next day.
You can't help it.
And
though.
you don't feel good again until about 3 seconds before you go on stage.
That's exactly right.
And then as soon as you finish
Yeah.
the show, you're like, oh my God, I did it. I'm amazing. I'm going to go out and get wasted.
That's the thing. I think a lot of people who aren't performers don't understand the come down after a show.
It's
It can
impossible.
take hours, yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
You can't. And it's.
It's not a case of walk off stage and go to bed.
Oh,
Absolutely
honey,
not.
no.
You also have been part of the Yummy cast. You were here last year doing, was it last year or the year before?
No, I was
years
here
ago?
with Yummy 2 years ago,
Yeah.
in our first year where we debuted our first Yummy show here. This is their 3rd year back. So the first
killer.
year was just Yummy, then they did Deluxe. This year they're doing Unleashed.
And how did you come to be part of Yummy?
Well, I was the original. I was one of
you're
the
part of the
original
original
cast
cast.
members of Yummy. Yeah, we put the show together for a midwinter program, which is a fundraiser for Midsummer Festival in Melbourne.
yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. Maybe that was like 5 years ago, and we did it as a one-off event. We were like trashy young kids, and we put together a great show, but we didn't expect anything from it. And when the curtain opened, we had a sold-out room of people that
that
were
feeling.
so eager to see
Yeah.
our show, and so we were blown by that and performed an amazing show, and people loved it. So we just kept building it until our first stop was we did a big show for Melbourne International Comedy Festival, which must have been about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then that was like a 2.5 hour full length production.
Oh my God.
And so we cut that down to an hour long show and brought it here. And it took
That's so
Perth
cool.
by storm.
We might have to get James in on the podcast.
Oh yeah, Valerie Hex.
Yeah, he's such a...
She's around for the next fortnight.
Yeah, I might have to drop him a message. I met him years ago here at Fringe when he was here with the dance show before he was doing any kind of drag and stuff. Yeah. I was watching, you did an interview the other day with Knights of Fringe.
Oh yeah.
I did it as well. And you said something that kind of left me gobsmacked because I am not that queen at all. You take 3 hours to get ready, but you like to start getting ready 6 hours before the performance.
Okay, whoa.
Please explain that.
Back it up, bitch. Back it up.
Because I am that queen that I'm like, my makeup takes an hour, I spend 15 minutes getting dressed, and I'm out the door. Like, I do not fuck around.
Fringe is a different story.
Right.
Usually, I would get ready a lot quicker. Whereas at Fringe, it takes me 3 hours all up to get ready.
Right.
But on top of that, I need to get to my venue early.
Sure.
I need to settle in, prep the costumes, get the sets ready. I need to deal with my flyers. I want to go out and flyer. I need to have something to eat. So I am like, if I start, I feel like because this is my solo show, I've got nothing else. Like it's all me.
It's just you, yeah.
As soon as I start cutting that, getting ready time down, like for a bit more rest, I'm mentally getting lazy. And I'm like, no, I need to be committed. I've come here for one reason only. I'm doing it properly.
That's it. Well, it's such a limited window of Fringe. You have to make the most of it.
Come on, you can't. Yeah.
I'm a bit of a diva though. I've started taking a backstage assistant with me everywhere I go.
Oh, that's not a diva. This is my first time doing a solo season like this, and I learned it on day 2. I was like, oh, I'm lonely.
Yeah, that's another. Absolutely.
I just need some company
Yeah.
and someone to make sure that I'm eating a piece of fruit and drinking some water. Next time, never doing it solo again.
But I think a lot of people really don't understand how much work goes into a show, especially when you're doing it by yourself. You're in a city that you don't live in, and like you said, you've got to do everything yourself. You're out there selling your show, you're performing the show. You've got to, and with Fringe, the turnaround times between the show before you and the show after you are usually quite fast.
Oh my God.
So you've got to bump in anything you need, usually within 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you do a quick 30-second sound check, the doors open, and you're on.
That's exactly right.
It all happens so fast.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But it's so fun.
That's it. I love it. The rush of it is...
Yeah, I would never commit. It's just the most exhilarating feeling. And when, the curtain goes up at a Fringe festival where there's 1,000 other acts on at the same time as you,
to see you,
and you've got a room full of people that have come to see you, oh my God.
Tell me a bit about the show. Did you write the show yourself? Did you self-produce? Do you work with collaborators?
No, I collaborated. So I've been wanting to make a one-woman show for a while.
Yeah.
But I kind of had an idea of how I wanted it to be, and I could never quite work out how to achieve it until I realized that if I collaborated, I could achieve.
Yeah.
And so I had started off with a director, a lovely friend, Emma Dockery from Melbourne. She actually approached me about doing a project, and I turned to her and said, well, I've actually got this project that I want to do out of office. And she grabbed it by the horns and said, yes, we're going to do this together. So she co-produced and co-directed. We got our friend Dan Givianoni on as a co-writer, and then my other friend Lucy Schnall she was like the treasurer. Because even though I'm Karen from finance, bitch, I can spend money like nobody's business. Yeah. So between the 4 of us, we managed to create this monster, and I think it really paid off. It's like any artistic venture. It really pays off collaborating.
I did the same thing when I did my first solo show.
Yes.
I'd been doing these rant videos on YouTube called Mad as Hell.
I remember.
Yeah, and I was like, I want to turn this into a stage show and I want to put parody songs in it. And I went and met with someone and they recommended someone else, and it just kind of, I fell into the lap of Janelle Koenig, who's a comedian here in Perth.
Wonderful.
She is Joel Creasy and Em Rusciano's collaborator.
Yes.
And I said, do you want to write on a drag show? Or I've got this idea, do you want to maybe help me flush it out? And she was such a huge help, just kind of giving me that direction and can I actually do this? And honestly, it changed my career because up until that point, I hadn't ever sung live in drag. I'd always lip synced, and I grew up doing music theatre and went to performing arts high school and trained as a singer. And the minute I started singing live in drag, it changed the game for me so massively.
Amazing. And sometimes you need some outside eyes.
Just to give you that.
Yeah, I think I always struggled for so long thinking, it's going to damage my, my artistic integrity or my creative process or something. No, it lets you shine.
Yeah.
It gives you breathing space.
I'm so glad you said that because I couldn't agree more. I love, and that's part of the reason why I want to do this podcast is because I get to work with so many different types of people in different fields of the industry and stuff. And everybody has a different point of view and a different artistic flavor they can bring to the table. And I just think it makes the world we live in such an interesting place.
That's right. That's so true.
Yeah. What's a normal working week for Karen from Finance when you're not doing Fringe Festival? Do you have a day job? Is Karen your full-time job? What do you do, just in general?
Karen from Finance is my full-time job.
Yeah, right.
I'm a full-time drag queen.
Yeah.
And I've been a full-time drag queen for, if I'm not mistaken, about 4 years now.
Wow, that's so cool.
Which is crazy, isn't it? Maybe 3.5 is probably more like it.
I remember the first time I gave up a day job to just work in entertainment full-time. It was such a liberating feeling.
Yeah. Well, I I didn't go straight into full-time. I was like, I had a good full-time job, and then I went into like...
Which was?
I was at like a bar manager and operator.
Okay, cool.
I had
Hospitality.
Hospo, yeah. I had 3 venues under my belt and like a staff of maybe 100 that I ran.
Oh my God, that's full on.
Yeah, so I was already working at events and booking DJs.
Gotcha.
And
so you already had your finger
life.
kind of in the entertainment bubble.
And then my long-term dream is to open my own venue.
Oh,
and so
about it.
I quit my job to study small business management to get that off the ground.
Yep.
And I took on 3 hospo jobs on the side to cover rent.
Sure, of course.
And while I was studying that's when the drag started picking up, and I thought, hang on a minute, I can make money from this.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. So then I dropped off one of the jobs and was working 2 jobs and studying, and then the gigs kept coming in. So you dropped, and one by one they were all gone, and then I was just performing full time.
How many gigs a week would you normally do? Like when you're in, do you have like residency gigs you do in Melbourne, or are you kind of more an events-based performer?
I'm more of an events-based performer. I think I do tour a lot.
Yeah.
And so to accommodate, I can't really have residencies.
Yeah, gotcha.
I've got a couple of gigs in Melbourne that I do fairly regularly.
Yeah.
But again, it's like the full-time work. You kind of have to drop those off to be available.
Absolutely.
But luckily enough, I know Australia celebrates drag so much these days, so there is a lot of opportunity. I would say that I probably do at least 4 or 5 gigs a week.
Yeah.
Easily. I mean, that might be I might do 5 gigs in like 1 or 2 days.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean I work every day, but if I'm not painting a face, I'm on my computer or on the spreadsheets.
Yeah, I'm the same. People often say to me, they're like, so what do you do when you're not performing? I'm like, bitch, I sit at home replying to email after email, booking in the next event. Like sometimes I can be booked, 6 to 12 months ahead with stuff, and there's so much planning that goes on. Mm-hmm. And people just think you rock up and do it. Yeah.
I wish that, it would be great to do like a day in the life of just to show people what actually goes into it. It's a lot.
And touring Australia, where is your favourite place to go? Do you have a favourite city or a favourite kind of audience base? Because I mean, you're pretty much well known all over the country now.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've been around a little bit for a little while. I don't have no, I think it's not fair to say that I have a favourite place in Australia. I really like all the cities. I like differently because one, I get along with pretty much all the girls in every city really well. I actually, to be completely honest, performers outside of the city that I'm from are generally nicer and more welcoming than I'm used to at home.
Wow.
I get along really well with girls everywhere. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things about drag. And I think maybe it's because there's like a little bit less competition or so. I don't know what it is, but I really enjoy touring. I really, really enjoy it.
I mean, I love when out-of-town girls come and visit.
Yeah.
I'm always like, hey, like, I want to go see them perform. Like,
don't get me wrong. I love the girls at home. Yeah. And I'm sure they love me back. And we have a great time together. But maybe it's because I don't get to see them as often. I love going to other cities and partying with the girls. Yeah. And doing shows, of course.
Yeah. And you've also been international a couple of times. You've been to DragCon. And have you done the Austin Drag Festival?
I did the Austin International Drag Festival about 4 years ago.
And how did the crowds over there react to Karen from Finance versus the Australian audiences?
Great.
They love it?
They love it. I don't know. Everyone loves it. Yeah. Everyone has a good time. Yeah.
Good. And I think that's one of the most important things. I'm very much at the same philosophy when I go out to perform. I'm not out there to change the world. I'm out there to make people have fun and feel good and just let them enjoy the show. Yeah,
that's right. Well, for me, what I fell in love with drag, what a drag queen is to me is that they're not a performer, they're not a look queen, they're not a comedian, they're not an MC. They're all of the things.
You have to be,
what is just as important as being good on a microphone or on the stage is being like a personality at the bar.
Sure.
And being being approachable and enjoyable and fun to hang. It's like a full package.
Well, that's how you, back in the day, now I'm sounding old, pre-social media and all those things, that's how you became well known.
Oh,
You would do your show and you'd either be at the bar before or definitely after the show, just working the room and making sure people knew who you were and building those connections with your audience and venue managers and all kinds of things.
It was never about the look. It was never about the show. They were just bonuses. It was about the campery.
Yes.
And I don't think...
Well, I think I said that to you the other night. We were watching a show and I was being shady and I was like, where's the camp? These young queens, I call them bedroom queens because they grew up, watching drag on TV and on the internet, and they kind of then would sit at home and practice their makeup and practice their craft before they ever set foot into a venue. And I feel like some of them walk into a venue with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because they're like, well, I've already got good makeup or I've already got a following online. And then they get on stage and they're basically a sack of shit. So,
and bless them, they'll learn eventually.
That's it.
It's all about life experience.
Absolutely. And it just makes me giggle.
I enjoy that I didn't start doing drag until a little bit later in life because it meant that I did have a bit of experience underneath my belt. And I think that that's really helped.
I didn't start drag till I was 21, I think. And by that time, I'd already been DJing in the clubs for 3-4 years. So I'd had such a love for drag just watching it.
Yeah. I think I was about 23 or 24. So same.
Yeah. It blows my mind when kids come out now and they're 18 and they're like, oh, I've already been doing drag for 2 years. I'm like, where? But they do it at home. They do it at parties. They go to high school proms in drag.
Oh my God, it's
crazy.
Incredible. Well, and that's the thing. It just means different things to different people.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the beauties of drag. There's so many different types of drag.
Yes.
Yeah, you can be whatever you want it to be. What inspires you when it comes to drag? And like a lot of your performances are mixes that are edited together with several songs and pieces of pop culture dialogue kind of all mashed together. Like, where does that kind of come from? Do you just kind of pick random bits and throw them together, or do you kind of set out with a creative idea?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that more often than not, there's already an idea, and then I go out exploring to find things that are going to match it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be inspired by a piece of spoken word or dialogue or something like that, but usually there's a concept first. Where those concepts come from, oh my God, I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, like my show Out of Office, for example, it was going to be called Out of Office before anything else. I knew that that's what I wanted the show to be. Yeah. It had to be about Karen leaving. Where is she going? What's she doing?
Yeah.
And then everything else came after. Yeah, so that the inspiration, I mean, it comes from all over the place. But mainly, I guess it's the idea and the concept of like this fantasy character that I've made up that is so mundane. But to me, she's still the fantasy.
Yeah.
Or a fantasy. Yeah. So it's like, what can we do to her? What can she find that is going to make people's jaws drop or giggle like crazy?
Yeah.
And mainly, all I want to do is I just want to put her in stupid situations that are going to make people laugh. That's it.
Why not? And what about the Karen from Finance look? So you said it started, with an op shop dress, and now, when I think of Karen from Finance, it's massive, bright coloured hair.
Yep.
You're really padded out, usually in a suit or like a caftan, like very almost retro chic kind of.
Over the top.
Where does that kind of come from?
Well, to me, it's like the juxtaposition of Karen from Finance being this mundane, boring person that would never have any friends that no one wants to talk to, compared to her being this larger than life, over the top, incredible character. So
Polar opposite.
So when I think about how I want the look to come across, I almost want her to be larger than life. So like a cartoon version of what that could be.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I want the big hair and the big hips and the big titties and the bright colors and the not necessarily outrageous costumes, but outrageous like office wear.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And do you have a seamstress that you work with, that you again collaborate with? Or?
Yeah, over the years I've had a whole bunch of different people make my costumes. I can sew. I make my basic costumes,
Gotcha.
but if I want something fabulous, I get it made. I've worked with a whole bunch of people, but more recently, for about 12 months now, I've been working with a new designer. His name's Tristan. He's an old drag queen from Melbourne, and I feel like we've finally found like a connection that works, and we just love working with each other. We love designing.
I love to
really
hear that
fun.
because I had the same thing with my dressmaker Anne Marie, who she has worked with Kylie Minogue, and she is best friends with Cindy Pastel. So she has this huge history and knowledge of drag. She's been all over the world, worked with everybody, and she had been sewing for me for the last 10 years, and she recently just retired. And I left her house like sobbing just when she told me, and I just heartbroken, because you make such a connection with them, and you kind of, it's quite a vulnerable thing to go to someone and stand in front of them pretty much butt naked and let them measure you and touch you and pin fabric against you and do whatever. So yeah, it's quite an intimate relationship that I had with Anne-Marie.
It goes back to what we were talking about before, about collaborating with people.
Absolutely.
So when you're like making a show, yes, you want to collaborate to make it brilliant, but actually if you look back, you've been collaborating since day dot.
Absolutely.
You've been collaborating with not even the person that styles your hair, but who you got the hair from, whether the makeup, the nails, you're collaborating the whole time.
Yeah. And I said to Anne-Marie, I was hysterically crying, and I said, so much of my success has come from what she has made me, because drag is such a visual medium that without it I would be nothing. So I'm forever grateful for people who lend their talents to collaborate with, especially when it comes to clothing and costumes and even hair. Do not ask me to even brush a wig. Because it's just, nope, I want the wig to come styled. I want to put it on my head and look fabulous.
Yeah.
But with costuming, I have always had a hand in designing it, or I actually studied textiles and design in high school, but never really ever put it to use.
Yeah, it's so I find it's really handy and important to know how to do it all, at least the basics.
That's it. If someone cuts out some fabric and says sew it together, I'm great. Don't ask me to draft a pattern or actually design the pieces. But yeah, I love to
That's right.
Yeah.
If you want me to make a fishtail gown, I make a fishtail gown.
Oh yeah.
If you want me to put a wig in curlers and blow it out, no problem.
Do you have someone who does your hair, or do you do most of it yourself?
Well, no, I have people do my hair as well, but I get all over the place. Oh my gosh, everywhere from like the final touch in Brisbane to integration in Virginia in the US, wig chapel in the UK. I get my hair from anyone that'll do it for me.
I'm kind of the same. Most of mine come from either Tamed by Trent. His styling is second to none.
Oh, I don't know anyone that's better.
Yeah, his styling is incredible. Perry Oxide here in Perth.
Lovely.
She's my local girl too girl. I mean, obviously there's Wigs by Vanity and blah, blah, blah. There's, a bunch of them here in Australia. But yeah, some of the ones I see on Instagram internationally are doing some incredible wig styling.
Yeah, and to go back to what we were talking about before about collaborating, sometimes I see some new performers, younger people coming through, getting frustrated that they don't have access to things like costume designers and wig stylists. And it is about they are collaborations, and it is their art form that they're putting on your head or your body. So you need to take your time to develop these relationships. They're not things that you can just buy from a store.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard. I mean, in Perth, I can tell you now, finding a seamstress who wants to sew drag, drag stuff has to be quite heavy duty because it's on the stage. We wear it to death. We put it through the ringer. So sometimes it's hard to find people who just have the knowledge to produce that kind of work.
Yeah.
It's definitely a skill in itself. And I know even I struggle sometimes. I'm like, who can I call? I've got this great idea. I can't execute it.
Oh yeah,
who
it's
can do
hard
it for
work.
me?
I mean, it's the same here. When I say like I have someone that I work with, like it doesn't mean that they're going to make things for me at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, that's it. They're not
I
at your
need to
beck
be
and call.
6 months ahead prepared and know what's going on. Yeah, it's hard work.
Do you have a favorite thing and a least favorite thing you love about doing drag or don't love about drag?
Okay, sure. A favorite and a least favorite. My favorite is just like people interaction.
Gotcha.
Whether it's in the dressing room having a sisterly with the other girls, where it's
sisterly, I love that. It's such a Melbourne thing.
Is it?
Well, I'm really good friends with Nova China.
Oh, she's a doll.
She's always sisterly is her. She says it to me every time I'm talking to her. So
she'll have a sisterly anything.
Yeah, she does. Well, her show's called The Sisters.
The Sisters. Sisters of Sequin. Oh gosh, it's so camp.
Yeah, the definition of camp. Anyway, back to your answer.
Having a sister in the dressing room, having a shot with a stranger at the bar, some camp banter on the stage with the audience. It's the people interaction for me. I love it.
Gotcha.
I'm absolutely an extroverted person. I can't handle being on my own. The people interactions that drag create and those options and possibilities, incredible. Love it. My least favorite thing is how quickly you can put a hole in a pair of brand new tights. Bitch.
Woo! You're using the wrong brand then. What brand do you use?
Block?
No.
What do you mean no? They're $50 pair of fishnets.
Mm-mm.
What are you talking about?
I use energetics and they last forever.
Yeah, but honey, you ain't trying to pull them over the hips like
I
what
don't
Miss
wear
Karen
pads.
wears.
True, I don't wear pads. But yeah, I've used Block, Capezio, and Energetics, and Energetics by far are the strongest and longest wearing.
See, I used to wear Energetics and I went to Block. I just spent, so for those of you listening at home, a pair of fishnets, $55.
Yeah,
a pair of dance tights, $35. I spent like $500 on tights to come
That's
to Perth.
a really interesting
out
thing.
of office.
People have no idea how expensive drag is.
Oh, they all got holes in them already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, drag queens by nature typically wear stockings from the dance store, which are usually worn by ballet dancers or professional dancing showgirls. And yeah, they're not cheap. But then again, nothing in drag is cheap.
Oh my god, and it's like the last thing you want to spend money on. Mm-hmm. And how dare they? What do the Rue girls say? Oh, the tights were ripped. Is that what they say? The tights were torn. How dare they judge us?
Oh my god!
How dare they judge us?
And well, what are your thoughts on Drag Race Australia? We keep hearing that it's the rights have been bought by a production company. It might be coming. We don't know when it's coming, if it's coming. Give us your take on it. How are you feeling about it?
My thoughts are quite simply, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yes, that's what I keep saying to people as well.
And when I see it, I will love it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Everyone's like, are you going to audition? I'm like, when I see an audition notice, because I ain't seen nothing yet.
There's almost nothing else to say about it. Is that come on, what's happening? I know there's girls out there that are already practicing and buying up fabrics and costumes and wigs.
Wow.
Like sure, that's great. Oh, there's people that don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We'll believe it when I see it.
It's funny. Some queens I've spoken to, they just shrug their shoulders. They don't seem interested at all. And then other queens are kind of like, I can't wait to audition.
Yeah.
I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Yeah. Part of me is like, yep, of course I'll audition.
Yep.
And then part of me is like, I've got a great career. I love what I do.
Drag Race is just, it's such a big thing, but it's not the be-all and end-all of drag.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you.
They announced that something might be happening sometime in the, not too distant future or whatever. It's like, you can't put all your eggs in one basket.
No,
you can't sit around
not.
looking forward to Drag Race. You've got like the Fringe festivals, the comedy festivals, the drag expos coming into Melbourne. And there's so much exciting stuff already happening. Like, think about it when it happens.
Yeah, and when you see the show, there's 12 contestants every season, and usually 3 or 4 of them have any kind of longevity after the show, and that's because they either have talent outside of the traditional box of drag, or they know how to market themselves like no one else, or they have been a meme or a viral queen. So what I'm trying to say is, being on the show is not an automatically ticket to fame, success, because we know that reality TV fame is very fleeting. So yeah, I also would love queens to know that being on the show does not guarantee that you're going to be a celebrity, does not guarantee that you're a better queen than someone else.
That you're going to be rich at the end of it.
And we've seen queens who have come on the show who've been well-known, incredible drag queens in their own right come on the show and fail miserably.
Sure.
And vice versa. We've seen queens that have come on the show who are relatively babies and go on to practically win the show.
Sure.
So, having success prior to Drag Race doesn't mean you'll have success on Drag Race, and, vice versa. So I think it's such an interesting little bubble of the drag world that is kind of formed because of Drag Race.
Yeah, that's so great. I mean, if you ask me if I'm excited about it, if it happens, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love to see it. But in the meantime,
just keep
there's
on
other
keeping
things
on.
going on.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Drag Race, I posted in, for those of you listening, there's a Facebook group called Aussie RuPaul Drag Race Fans. And this group swings the pendulum of being a really cool, fun group talking about your favorite queens, right back to the most hateful trolls of the internet. It's kind of this weird place where everything coexists together. And I posted in there this morning saying, hey, I'm interviewing Karen from Finance today. Leave a question and I might ask them. So I kind of went through these with Karen before we hit the record button. So I'm going to go through a couple of them to wrap up the episode.
Sure.
All right, question number 1. This is from Thomas. Who would your snap Snatch Game character be?
Hi, Thomas. Fem and I were chatting before we went on air about this question. I have such a good answer for this question, and I've been telling people left, right, and center. But just as Fem asked me before, I realized, you know what? If Drag Race Australia is going to come, I need to stop telling people because my answers are really damn good.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Yeah. I've had the same thing. People have said to me, they're like, oh, obviously you're going to do Adele on the Snatch Game. And I'm like, actually, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I've got something which I think is better, funnier, and kind of unexpected.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't want to do the
You've done
expected.
Adele. You do a good Adele.
Yep.
Adele's been done on Snatch
That's
Game.
it, exactly.
You want it, like,
and
you
I kind of
want
want
it
to do
be the
something
best.
Australian. I'd love to do something Aussie.
Yeah.
And we saw that on the UK version of the show. Quite a few of them did UK-based celebrities, and I thought the UK version of Snatch Game was incredible.
Smash it out of the park.
Yeah.
So, Thomas, I am no longer telling you who I'm going to do
Watch
on
this
Snatch. Who I would do on
who
Snatch
I would do,
Game.
not who I will do.
Spread the rumors.
Next question. I'm not even going to go with it. Someone asked, what's your thought on the season 12 girls? I'm like, I love this whenever they release a new batch of queens and they do the Meet the Queens videos. And we've seen it happen in the past where people fall in love with a queen through their promo video. And then 30 seconds into the first episode, you realize they're a hateful motherfucker.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, I don't. So I can't
it's
even.
Awkward. I mean, I don't know any of the girls. I know all the New York girls, but I didn't know the rest of them. Cherry Pie's one to look out for, and Brita Filter.
Yes,
oh
they
my
both
God.
caught my attention.
But
I've been following them on Instagram previously anyway.
They're
but
New York queens. They're like a breed of their own. But
yes.
They're very exciting
Absolutely.
for a new season.
This question comes from Jade. It says, can she host Drag Race Australia, please, and thank you?
Jade, you know what? All right. It is so sweet that you would like to see that. And a few people have said similar things. But Jade, if you think that Drag Race, like you've seen how ruthless Drag Race fans can be, could you imagine if I even considered saying yes to doing something like that? I would be murdered on the runway.
Though. If I was
Murdered.
asked, why would you not take the opportunity?
Well, sure. I'm not saying I would turn it down, but I would much rather compete with my sisters and have fun. And
who would you like to see as the host then? Do you have... I know I definitely have a list of people that I think would be amazing hosts.
I'd be keen to hear. But I actually, there's not that many that I can think of that I think would do... If it's not RuPaul that I think could do it and do it well.
Yeah.
I think my top two would be Vanity and potentially Trevor Ashley.
Trevor Ashley is a great choice. Trevor Ashley is my drag mother, believe it or not. Was the first person who ever put me into drag.
Lovely.
I have a couple. If we're going to go drag, probably my pick would be Verushka Darling from Sydney.
Oh, yeah.
I worked with her a lot very early on in my career. She was an MTV host back in the day.
Of course she was.
She is a phenomenal MC.
Yep.
I just think she is the creme de la creme of drag.
She's great.
Someone like Carlotta. I mean, she's Carlotta. I'm saying Carlotta. She's an Aussie icon. I mean, is she still relevant with a younger audience? I mean, the history behind her and what she's done is absolutely phenomenal, but would it translate with the Drag Race audience?
She's such an icon.
That's such an icon. I mean, Courtney Act's kind of an obvious choice, but she has a bit of bad blood with the Drag Race family. And
for the right reasons, too.
Absolutely.
I support our Courtney.
Absolutely. A lot of queens are, putting their foot down when it comes to calling Rue out for her kind of... I don't even know how to word it. Just her
alternative motives.
Yes, her views, her selective views of things.
Yeah.
Yes, and then if they were going to go someone who wasn't a drag queen to host it, I'd love to see someone like Magda Zavansky host it.
Oh, wow.
I think she'd just be a treat.
Oh, that would be fun, wouldn't it? The Big Girls Blouse team.
Perfect. Yes, put the three of them on there. Oh, my God.
That.
I think one important thing that needs to happen with Drag Race Australia is whoever the production team is, they need to have drag queens on the production team.
Oh.
I think they need drag advisors.
Sure.
Like find some of the, whether they're retired drag queens or drag queens who don't want to compete on the show, come in as advisors, because I think Drag Race Australia, it needs to be Australian. It can't be a carbon copy of the American show. I don't think it would translate.
Well, I hope that they would do that. Well, they did so well with the UK version.
The UK version is perfect. They did a fantastic job on making sure that translated into the UK drag experience. Next question. How has Drag Race changed the drag scene? Is it for the better or worse?
It's obviously for the better. Look, drag's huge, and there's no denying it. How has it changed? It's changed the audience, which I think is great because it's diversified the audience and enlarged it. Maybe for the worse, I think it's changed the idea of the perception or the meaning of what drag can be to people. Yeah. So I don't think that it is generally as authentic maybe as it once was. But I mean, you got to take the good with the bad, don't you?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. What's your favorite fan experience?
Okay, here you go. I did a RuPaul's Drag Race screening party in Chicago at Roscoe's with Alaska and Asia O'Hara last year.
I've seen these online.
And when I was there, I went to the bar afterwards to have a shot of Fireball. Lovely.
Lovely.
And a lady came up and presented me with 2 badges that she'd made. She'd printed off these pictures and hand-painted them with glitter nail polish of my poodles, my dogs.
Oh!
A woman on the other side of the world.
If you follow Karen online, you would have seen the pictures of her dogs.
And she said, I know you've been away from home for a few weeks and you're probably missing your baby, so I made you these.
Love it. That's so sweet. All right, final question. Zero or Myob?
Oh my God, Myob. No! Vintage. I'm a vintage queen.
I'm definitely a zero queen.
No, zero is much better.
Thank you, Karen from Finance, our very first ever guest. Where can people find you online?
You can find. You just search Karen from Finance. It's going to pop up everywhere.
Everywhere. Yep. Thank you so much for tuning into our first episode of Let's Conversate. You can find us online. Just search Let's Conversate Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. My name's Dean Misdale. You probably know me as Feminem. Thanks so much, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye.